Here's the thing about smuggling. I have heard Donald Trump talk about how he wants the border to be secure. I have heard Mark Carney talk about how he wants to do whatever Donald Trump tells him to do. And for most people, it seems cut and dry. To secure the border, you have one country on one side, you have another country on the other side, say in the example of Mexico. However, in Canada, we have a unique situation where we have many First Nations bands that occupy spaces that straddle both the Canadian and American border. They start in one country and they finish on another, which is a unique set of challenges in many ways. First of all, is the reservation, they have exclusive right to the policing of that territory. The First Nations themselves, not the various police forces that might bump up against it, which means that if there's somebody who can if there's smuggling going on from the United States to Canada or Canada to the United States, and the individual happens to be a member of whatever particular region we were discussing, that individual can move freely across that reservation without any scrutiny. Otherwise, there will be a considerable amount of scrutiny. That means that the police force on that reservation needs to be augmented and strengthened. Now, to that end, there was a committee meeting last week, and I forgot to save the link, so sorry about that. They heard from the police chief of the Akwesasne Mohawk Police Services on the Canadian side of the border. And he made some very interesting points. So let's have a listen to that, and we will sort of analyze how the Liberal government, again, is letting us down, and how this unique complication also presents a very interesting solution.
And thank you for the invitation to appear today. My name is Lana Dios the Swamp. I'm the acting chief for the Akwesasne Mohawk Police Service. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today about the unique realities for policing in Akwesasne and how they relate to the Canada and U.S. border management. Akwesasne is not only a First Nation community, it's one of the most geographically complex areas in North America. Our territory spans 2 countries, 2 provinces, and New York State. These borders run through neighborhoods and in some cases individual homes, creating operational challenges unlike anywhere else in Canada. Due to this geography, Akwesasne Mohawk Police patrols and enforces laws in Ontario and in Quebec and must transit through New York State to carry out our duties. Organized crime groups exploit this complexity, forcing a small First Nation police service to operate at a transnational level with limited resources. Our community faces significant cross-border public safety pressures, including fentanyl and opioid trafficking, firearms trafficking, human smuggling, contraband, and marine-based smuggling along the St. Lawrence River. What passes through Akwesasne affects communities across Canada and the United States, highlighting Akwesasne Police as a frontline role in national and cross-border security. We maintain strong partnerships with Canada Border Services Agency, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Ontario Provincial Police, the Sûreté de Quebec, the United States Border Patrol, Homeland Security Investigations, New York State Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Drug Enforcement Agency, the U.S. Coast Guard, and most importantly, the St. Regis Mohawk Tribal Police.
So I want you to consider, and I added Cornwall Police because he didn't mention it, but Cornwall Police obviously back up to the Akwesasne Reserve. This is a lot of various police forces who, in one side of the picture or the other, are in different countries, never mind different jurisdictions. So we have Homeland Security, we have the FBI, but we also have the RCMP and Canadian Border Services, and even the Coast Guard, because the St. Lawrence River goes through, or at least comes up against, the Akwesasne Reserve. Now, I didn't want to break down each and every one of the various different jurisdictions, and I thought about putting in the map, and then I just said, no, you're going to have to see it for what it is, that this individual is going to be getting how shall I put it delicately, yelled at or called incompetent or something to that effect by each and every single solitary one of these particular branches of government. They're all going to be pointing the finger at this guy and saying, oh, you let us down. You allowed this to transverse the First Nations reservation. You didn't block this. You didn't do that. And so you can appreciate how, from his perspective, it seems like a very daunting task to be able to maintain the crime-free zone, or at least the smuggle-free zone of the Akwesasne Reservation when it comes in contact with Ontario, Quebec, New York, all of the federal bodies of Canada and all of the federal bodies of the United States. And we are wondering how it is that we can't seal the border. I mean, they're only human. And you look at the amount of police forces that they have to coordinate with. That's a really, really high expectation, it seems to me.
On the southern portion of Akwesasne. These relationships enable joint partnership, intelligence sharing, and
I put the Mohawk Tribal Police in the center because, and he said on the southern part, indicating to me that on the one hand, they have the AMPS you can see, which is the Akwesasne Mohawk Police Service. And then on the American side, they clearly have a different police service. But still tribal, but only under the American rules, I suppose.
rapid multi-jurisdictional response. Yet many collaborations remain informal. Formal agreements streamline authorities and shared operational frameworks among Canada and U.S. and our three governing councils, the Mohawk Nation Council of Chiefs, Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, and the St. Regis Mohawk Tribal Council are essential to improving public safety and accountability.
So, for those of you that are not aware, the Mohawk Nation takes up a big section of the border, between Ontario and Quebec. So what he said is the various chiefs have a tribal, and then the American side of the Akwesasne has a tribal jurisdiction, and the southern side also has a council, I suppose we could call them. So they also get a say. Just if it wasn't complicated enough, now we have to be talking to all of the elders and the elected bodies of the Mohawk First Nation specifically. Oh yeah, no, this is come on, let's be serious. If we're gonna get serious, let's be serious.
Our perspective on a Bill C2 and Bill C12 is supportive on its intent to enhance CBSA and Coast Guard powers, its accelerated control on drug precursors, and expanded intelligence sharing, all of which will strengthen Akwesasne Mohawk Police's operational capacity. Our implementation recommendation must recognize the First Nation service as an essential partner, include targeted funding for infrastructure, technology, staffing, and training, formalize cross-border coordination protocols, and apply enhanced powers and transparency and community oversight. We also stress that the border and policies must respect First Nation rights under the Jay Treaty of 1794, ensuring free passage of First Nation peoples. Modern enhanced enforcement must not restrict family movement, cultural ceremonies, hunting, fishing, harvesting, and community governance. Strengthening border security must go hand in hand with culturally informed rights-affirming approaches. To meet these related challenges, the Akwesasne Mohawk Police requires federal and provincial support in three areas. One is the operational infrastructure. A permanent policing presence on Cornwall Island, Ontario is a critical and important aspect to improve accessibility, visibility, and emergency response. Our Marine Unit facility also requires expansion and proper docking, secure storage, and rapid launch capability.
So when you factor in the St. Lawrence River, ever since the 1950s in Canada, essentially starts in Cape Breton of Nova Scotia, essentially, and it goes all the way to Detroit. For all intents and purposes, you can get really far. It goes past the Detroit if you want to look at how it connects the bodies of water. So that means that an individual smuggling something from, say, Canada into the United States could skirt the border for hundreds of miles, could just simply drive along it on a boat until they found a proper or an appropriate way to zip across the border into the United States, for example. Smuggling in Canada is it's a big industry. Now, I realize that many smugglers are taking things from Canada down into the United States, but it still does not omit the challenges of what you just heard from this individual. The First Nations island, the Cornwall Island in Ontario is a part of the First Nations band. It's a part of the reservation, so they want to have the right to put a marine unit there, and they need the money to get it built.
2, technology and intelligence. Modern surveillance, enhanced marine radar, secure communications, and real-time intelligence systems interoperable with federal and U.S. partners are essential. And the 3rd, personnel and sustainability. Akwesasne Police faces federal-level challenges daily, yet remains funded as a small local service. Long-term and stable federal support is necessary for staffing, specialized training, mental health resources, and recruitment. Our mandate is both community and border focused, and funding must reflect that reality. We also must recognize that Akwesasne is a self-governing and inherent responsibilities of our lands and waters. Effective border management must treat First Nation Police Service as a full partner. Community trust is central enforcement success. Akwesasne Mohawk Police provides culturally grounded policing, and federal agencies alone cannot. Supporting First Nation policing-led approaches strengthens public safety and advances reconciliation. Akwesasne is not a gap in border security. We are a critical and essential partner. Both proper tools, cross-border frameworks, sustained federal collaboration, AMPS will continue to protect the community while enhancing the safety of Canadians and Americans. Thank you very much.
I remember back in the beginning of the year when Mark Carney was trying to impress Donald Trump, and he was talking about how he's going to be hiring a bunch of people for the CBSA, and they were going to get drones, and they were going to get planes, and they were going to get helicopters, and they were going to do everything. And I'm sure if I were to talk to them, they're still going to do it. It might take them another 150 years, but somewhere on their list is these issues. It seems to me that if you ask me, how can we assist in sort of sealing up the border, at least in this aspect, there is a great opportunity to develop a framework right here as they come in contact with, Quebec Provincial Police, which is called the Sûreté. There's the Ontario Provincial Police. There's the New York State Police. There's the FBI, the DEA, the RCMP. I mean, you saw the list. Some of them are federal, some of them are provincial, some of them are even local police departments. Having somebody in there that is a liaison to all of those particular departments seems like it's just a smart move. It also seems that we should be worried about taking care of the marine unit, as the reservation itself is in part and parcel in the water. So it quite literally straddles the border and the landscape for this particular region of Canada, which is not a small region by any stretch of the imagination, like the reservation itself. Of course, this is a golden opportunity for the federal government to show its diplomacy, because what we really should be getting is Uncle Donnie there to come up here with his big giant checkbook and build them a marine unit and take care of the structure on top of Cornwall Island. And people out there are going, yeah, but they're American and we're Canadian. And I'm like, yeah, but they have the money and we have the Liberal government putting us in debt day in and day out. So to get anything out of the Liberal government is going to be considerable. It's going to be very difficult to do. They don't have the money now. They're already talking about cuts on every plan, and they're already talking about handouts to the various steel organizations. But if we want to close this border, we have a golden opportunity to practice how to make it smoother for other First Nations across this continent of ours to participate in closing the border. Don't forget the unique challenge of crossing that reservation if you are not part of the particular band, indicating that there are criminal elements on the reservation that are assisting in some of the smuggling. which it stands to reason that that's going to be the situation. And giving the individual police in this, like the Mohawk Police in this particular aspect, the resources they require to get this problem solved seems to be a smart move, seems to be pertinent, because we don't want any of the narcotics crossing that border. We don't want any of the things that are typically utilized by the criminal element to earn resources to cross the border. And from there, we can use that framework to move forward and move onward. Like the first thing they should be doing is hiring a bunch of people that can speak French, English, and I'm going to assume they can speak Mohawk. And that way, all of the information can be coming into this dispatch officer more accurately. All of the information that they gather can be exported to the various spokesmen for all of these particular policing groups. Now, I know that it looks like a big, gigantic cluster, and to a large degree it is, but it's the kind of thing that, on the one hand, criminal elements will look at Canada and think we're a joke, and that bothers me. And on the other hand, we can sort of use this to build stronger relationships with, say, the New York State governor or the federal government in Washington. We can talk to them about how this problem exists for both of us, and really together strengthening these particular individuals will strengthen the country as a whole. You can let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.